Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today we will now be moving past Hoover and going into FDR and someone that attempts to fix the Great Depression. So, our objective for today is I will learn how FDR began taking America out of the Great Depression by analyzing his first New Deal. Again, I will learn how FDR began taking America out of the Great Depression by analyzing his first New Deal. So today's title is The New Deal, FDR Strikes Back, the first New Deal. It's called FDR Strikes Back because today, May 21st, is the 40th anniversary of my favorite movie, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. And I can name the presentation whatever I want. So, the FDR Strikes Back. So, quick review over President Hoover. He did not believe the government should get involved in direct relief. He tried to distribute aid to companies and local state governments, philosophically opposed to the sort of government-people relationship that FDR would use. Again, he felt like the economy would just fix itself. Again, the economy goes up and down. It's like a wave. It goes up and it goes down. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. So there was really no way of telling that this was going to be as bad as it was for a lot of people until it was as bad as it was. At that point, it was too late. Hoover's response to the emerging depression, was the Harley-Smooth tariff of 1930, 40 to 50% duty on imports. That means anything that comes in this country has to pay a tax, which makes people buy more American stuff, which will create new jobs. However, if those new jobs don't happen, that means everything coming into America costs more money that people don't have. The Reconstruction Finance Corporation, that's the trickle-down theory that they would give money to the bosses, and the bosses will use that money to pay their employees. Trump actually did something with it like this in our current economic situation by still paying and giving out loans to business companies as long as they pay their employees. So if they're paying their employees with that money they get from the government, that's trickle-down theory. That's saying, think of like when Principal McNair prints out a flyer and hands it to me for me to hand to you guys. Trickle down. He's not handing it directly to you guys. He's giving it to me. Actually, he gives it to me as the lead. I give it to the other teachers, and all the teachers give it to you guys. The bonus army given money, or was going to give money to the World War I vets in the Hoover Dam. People resented Hoover as aloof, as in he's rich, he's better than everyone. His problems aren't the same as the average American, so why should he care? And when he did do something, it was too little, too late. So if we look at this cartoon from 1932, it says on the bottom, Christmas Eve preparation. If you look at the boxes, it says The Forgotten Man, Prohibition Case, Debt Settlement, Farm Relief, Budget Balancing, and that is Hoover sitting there trying to get everything fixed, and you can see kind of like FDR coming in like real smooth, saying, "Just leave the MERB. I'll do it after March 4th." As in, after I become president, I'll take care of all that. Don't worry about anything. I'll fix it. Yike, you're not going to do anything anyway, so just leave everything how it is. And this, I think, is a great representation of basically what was going on in the United States at the time. In the forefront, you see houses burning down. It just looks like a mess. It looks depressing, sad. But if you look in the background, right above the trees, you see a white building. That building is the United States Capitol. So you see like the government basically just sitting there watching while the country burns down. So that is a very good representation of what is going on right now in the United States. So FDR and the election of 1932. So some background on FDR. He was the governor of New York, assistant secretary to the Navy. You saw young FDR when he watched the World Wars during the World War I segment, helping out Woodrow Wilson. He is wealthy, extremely wealthy. He's distantly related to Teddy Roosevelt, so he is a cousin, like a fourth cousin to Theodore Roosevelt. In fact, his wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, is also related to Theodore Roosevelt, which makes FDR and his wife Eleanor cousins. Yeah, it's a little weird now. In 1921, he contracted polio. Polio is a disease that has now been eradicated. Most of you got polio shots when you were babies, so you wouldn't get it. Polio is a terrible disease that basically paralyzes you, either from the waist down, the neck down, and he had to use a wheelchair from the mid-1920s for the next 20 years. He was an excellent speaker and conveyed empathy for the forgotten man, the hard-working poor. He spoke to the average American, not just the wealthy, but to the average American. So in the election of 1932, FDR wins in a dramatic landslide. He gets 60% of the popular vote. If you look at the map that's right next to him, you see all the green voted for FDR, the red voted for Hoover. So yeah, even though a lot of wealthy people in a lot of wealthy states voted for Hoover, because it was the Depression didn't really affect them, FDR won. The victory demonstrated America's call for a new style of government. People were sick of the government that just was like, whatever happens, happens. Pay your taxes, though. You know, respect us. Go fight for us. But we're not going to help you. FDR's reform policies began to encourage blacks to shift from Republican to the Democratic Party. A lot of African Americans today support the Democratic Party. Obama was a Democrat. Trump's Republican. However, before FDR, most African Americans supported Republicans and were against Democrats. Before FDR, Republicans were the ones that ended slavery, like Lincoln was a Republican. And the Democrats were the racist ones that didn't want African Americans to be able to get the same rights as everyone else. The New Deal coalition lasted until 1968, and it helped out farmers, African Americans, both southern and urban, labor unions, banking, wealthy liberals, and women. So his first inaugural address, I'm not going to read this entire thing. I do want to just look into what's in red. So it says, so first of all, let me assert my firm belief. Actually, let me do my best FDR impression. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And that's a very famous quote. You could pause this video to read the entire paragraph that he said. But the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. We have nothing to be afraid of. We're going to get through this. And the only thing we should be afraid of is being afraid. Because if we're afraid, we're not going to get through this. We need to work hard, we need to get through this, and we're going to survive. So here is a video of FDR's speech. If you choose to watch it, it will be both in the PowerPoint and linked to the actual Google Classroom itself. So if you choose to watch this, please be my guest. So FDR had the 3 R's: relief, recovery, reform. People were starting to take money out of banks, causing banks to go out of business. There was a bank run and 4,000 banks closed. FDR declared a 4-day bank holiday from March 6th to March 10th to stop these banks from closing. Anytime one of these banks got money in, people were going in and just taking out. The banks weren't able to catch up. They weren't able to get a reserve, build money, build interest, and then be able to give people the money back. Because as soon as the money came in, it went right out the door, people taking it out. So he gave them 4 days to relax, get organized, so they could actually help fix this problem. FDR is famous for his first 100 days. Even today, presidents are, whenever a president is elected, they are looked at through the first 100 days. What did they accomplish in the first 3.5 months of their administration? So, for FDR, the first 100 days were beginning where they had many programs implemented. He started a brain trust of industry experts to develop these. He called it relief, recovery, reform. We're going to help people out by giving relief. Recovery, we are going to come back from this. We're going to get back to where we are. And reform, we're going to change this so this doesn't happen again. He created an alphabet soup of programs. The CCC, AAA, TVA, NWA. I know what you're thinking. Not that NWA. PWA, FDIC, NRA, Glass-Steagall Act, etc. Rooted in the Keynesian economics, stimulate the economy. You get people working. You get people out doing something. You start these projects that people are going to use. And by putting people to work for government projects, they are getting paid. They're getting paid. They're going to spend money. By spending money, there's going to be a demand for new products. People are going to need to work again. And that's how you're going to bring back the economy. So again, relief, needs of the hungry and jobless, recovery, help agricultures and industry, and reforms change the American economy. Congress rubber-stamped many of FDR's initiatives. The nation supported any change as long as it appeared the government was doing something. People just needed this to be fixed. So FDR could have said, I'm going to get rid of all your debt and gone, Leviosa. It doesn't matter if he didn't say Leviosa. If he said Leviosa, they'd be like, okay, cool. Many programs had foundations in progressivism. Remember, his cousin was one of the progressive presidents. So he is well informed in how to do all these measures. So his first New Deal, from 1933 to 1934 for banking. The Emergency Banking Relief Act gave the president power to regulate banking and foreign exchange. He would, before this, the banks could do whatever they want. They spent people's money, they charged them exorbitant amount, or they gave them little interest. Now the president has power to fix this. He conducted fireside chats. FDR used the radio broadcast to directly appeal to the people. It wasn't reporters he was talking to or politicians or Congress. He would sit there at a radio station and transmit a radio message to the American people, much like how President Obama and President Trump would make speeches on television and you're not reading about it online or you're seeing it in the newspaper, but it's on TV and you could watch it. The Glass-Steagall Banking Reform Act created the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which insured individual deposits and banks. You probably hear every time you hear a credit card commercial or a bank commercial on TV, you hear, it's a member of the FDIC. That's what it's referring to. We also talked about that in financial literacy. It prohibited banks from selling Social Securities, stocks, and bonds. Kind of like a catch-22. They're going to sell you stocks in their own bank. They're making money, and they're making money off of you, so they're kind of making double the amount of money. This was repealed in 1999, and you can see what happened. You can see kind of how the economy is pretty good, and then in the early 2000s, it starts slipping again. The Homeowner Loan Corporation provided loans for homeowners facing foreclosure. If you were about to lose your house, the government would give you money to pay that mortgage so you could get back on your feet. Securities and Exchange Commissions. strictly limit speculation in the stock market. The stock market couldn't do whatever you want. If you know who Martha Stewart is, she's that famous lady who cooks and does a lot of household stuff, especially with Kmart, before they went under. She went to jail for insider trading on the stock market because it's now illegal. People would find secrets out. Hey, listen, this isn't going to do too good, so you might want to sell your stuff and not tell anyone else. Causes the rich to stay rich, but the poor lose all their money. Okay, managed currency. FDR ordered that all gold be surrendered to the Treasury. We used to be on a gold standard for our money. We used to get money, and you could go to a bank and trade that money in for gold or for silver, and we don't have the gold standard anymore. All the gold was taken and put in the Treasury in Fort Knox, stuff like that, and we no longer use gold for money. We use dollar bills or coins. If you find a very old dollar bill or any old money, a lot of times it might say silver certificate on it. Now, if you have a $1 silver certificate, and a lot of times these are from like the 30s and 20s, you could go to the bank and get $1 worth of silver back then. Not anymore. He came up with the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC. It's provided 3 million jobs for working in national forests, flood control, and swamp damage. Required to send the majority of wages to their families. So people were put in jobs to work in state parks. People were getting paid. They had to send the majority of that money home to their families so bills could get paid, so they're not just banking it, keeping it for themselves, or spending it on stuff for themselves. They're putting it where it needs to be. The Federal Emergency Relief Act aimed at immediate relief. It gave $3 billion in direct payments to state and local governments. We just did something like that here in the United States to help with this whole pandemic. The Civil Works Administration, it was part of the FDR, gave temporary jobs such as rank and leaves. So you could get a job temporarily while you're on a trip somewhere to get money to do something. The Agriculture Adjustment Agency, AAA, AAA, the goal was to make money available for farmers to pay mortgages. The United States is the breadbasket of the world. The amount of food that we provide for not just us, but for the world, keeps from a lot of people from starving to death. If these farmers lose their farms, there's no one to make the wheat. You don't get bread. People starve to death. Farmers paid farmers not to produce mass product crops. They don't want these farmers to all be making wheat or all be growing strawberries, because that makes it cheap, and you want a variety of stuff. So it paid them to switch it up and grow different things depending on where they are at. Public Works Administration paid state and local governments to pay unemployed to build, upgrade America's infrastructure. A lot of America's roads and bridges were very old, and they wanted to get these things built. A lot of New York City skyscrapers actually were built during this time period, such as the Empire State Building. And a lot of bridges were fixed, the roads were fixed. It became more of a modern world at this time. Okay, for some of his direct relief, you have the Tennessee Valley Authority. Experiment in infrastructure development, which was a huge success. Hired thousands of people in Appalachia, the nation's poorest region. So this is central, south United States, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, southern, east coast, yeah. Build dams, electric power plants, and electrify region without power. I mean, New York City is lit up. There's street lamps, there's cars, there's all this stuff. You go down south to somewhere in like North or South Carolina or like Tennessee, they're still everything by candlelight, they're living in log cabins. So it brought them more towards the 21st century. The National Recovery Administration, the NRA, forced labor and business to work together, suspended antitrust laws, where people can't take advantage of other people. Big business set up codes that included set prices and fair practices. This is why if you go to one store to buy something, you could get it for like, let's just say you want to buy the new Grand Theft Auto game. You go to GameStop and you could get it for like $60. You go to Target, you could get it for $59.99. You go to Best Buy, it might be on sale for $50. But the original price is the same. It keeps the same prices across the board. Unions were allowed to collectively bargain, as in unions were allowed to work together. Teachers union, which advocates for teachers, collective bargain against Governor Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, when we were kind of having our funds taken from us and making it so that we weren't able to like provide what you guys need. I mean, if we didn't collective bargain as a teacher union altogether, chances are we wouldn't have laptops for every single one of you guys, or the classrooms would have been so overcrowded, would have had like 35 of you guys in one class because they wouldn't be able to afford to pay all the teachers or have enough classrooms. Okay, moving on. All right, and here's some of the things that are around today: Social Security, Public Works Administration, the Reconstruction Financial Corps, the Agriculture Adjustment. Like these are a bunch of things. A lot of these things are still around today. So what was going on back then is still playing a big role in what we have today. In fact, Social Security, when you start working, the day you start working at 16 years old, or however old you are when you start, some of you already told me you work, when you start paying taxes, you're paying into Social Security. So when you're an old fart like me, you are able to retire and actually get money from the government to live on without having to work to the day you die. Alright, so classwork for today. Read Chapter 23, The New Deal, Section 1, A New Deal Fights Depression. Answer questions A through E, and please ace the questions. Submit via Google Classroom by 3:30 today. Tomorrow we will do something a little bit more fun where we go into Bonnie and Clyde and see how they became America's criminals and how the average American just fell in love with them and supported them, but then other ones wanted them dead, and reasons why behind this and why they did what they did and how they got away for so long. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Yeah, have a great day, everyone. Remember, the Force will be with you always.